In the heart of Italy, a small city called Rome rose from nothing to rule the ancient world. Rome didn't just conquer it, controlled, assimilated, and transformed entire civilizations. From the deserts of Egypt to the forests of Britain, Rome's influence spread like wildfire. But how did a single city manage to dominate millions across 3 continents? The answer lies not in brute force alone, but in strategy, discipline, and vision. Rome began as a monarchy, became a republic, and then transformed into an empire. At its peak, it ruled over 70 million people, more than any other empire of its time. What made Rome powerful wasn't just its legions, it was its system of control. They built roads, laws, cities, and systems that bound the empire together tightly. Rome didn't just invade it, Romanized the lands, turning enemies into citizens. They knew that lasting power comes not only from swords, but from ideas. They adopted gods, languages, and cultures, absorbing instead of erasing. Every Roman soldier was also a builder, administrator, and symbol of empire. Their discipline was unmatched, their law was supreme, and their pride was eternal. The empire stood for order, authority, and control over both body and mind. Rebellion was crushed quickly, and loyalty was rewarded with wealth and status. Rome mastered propagandas in statues, coins, and temples to display power. Even their enemies feared their organization more than their weapons. Rome didn't just rule with fire, it ruled with system and stability. Today, we uncover the secrets behind this ancient superpower's grip on the world. How did Rome turn chaos into order, and how long could it hold the throne? The story begins with one city, one people, and an ambition that knew no limits. This is not just a tale of war, it's a lesson in empire, identity, and influence. Let's open the gates of Rome and see how the world fell at its feet. Welcome to the empire that never slept and never forgot Rome. At the heart of Roman control was the legion, a deadliest war machine of its time. Roman legions weren't just soldiers, they were engineers, diplomats, and symbols of order. Each legion consisted of thousands of highly trained men with strict discipline. Training was brutal and relentless. Marching 20 miles with full armor was normal. Soldiers learned to build camps, bridges, and fortifications wherever they went. Rome never stopped moving forward. Every conquest was permanent and strategic. Weapons included the gladius, the pilum, and a large rectangular shield called the scutum. Their famous formations like the testudo could break enemy lines with ease. But it wasn't just tactics, it was the mindset that made them unstoppable. Cowardice was punished severely. Loyalty was everything in the legion. They were paid, respected, and promised land after retirement. This created a professional, motivated army unlike anything seen before. Their commanders were part politician, part warrior, trained to lead and inspire. When Rome marched, people surrendered before a single arrow flew. Fear and fame followed the eagle banners across rivers, deserts, and mountains. The legions didn't just fight, they built roads, forts, and entire cities. They secured trade routes, suppressed revolts, and collected taxes for the empire. A single legion could turn a wild province into a functioning Roman colony. When necessary, they acted as governors, judges, and enforcers of Roman law. The military was the backbone of Roman order, and its reach was global. Rome didn't have borders, it had outposts, stretching into every known region. From Scotland to Syria, the legion's presence meant Roman rule, and if rebellion arose, the response was swift and merciless. To understand Roman control, you must understand the iron discipline of the legion. They weren't just soldiers, they were the empire's heartbeat. Rome didn't just conquer land, it connected it, bonded it, and built it into something new. Their most famous phrase still echoes: "All roads lead to Rome." This was not just poetic, it was policy, executed with military precision. Over 250,000 miles of roads were built straight, strong, and meant to last. These roads moved armies, goods, messages, and ideas at record speed. They built bridges, tunnels, aqueducts, and harbors, many still standing today. Roman cities were planned with grid systems, public squares, and amphitheaters. Every new province received Roman infrastructure, architecture, and organization. Rome used concrete, arches, and advanced surveying techniques centuries ahead of others. The cities felt Roman no matter how far from Italy they were. Markets, forums, baths, and temples were built to standard designs. This gave the entire empire a unified look and feel. Rome in every corner. Even local elites were invited to adopt Roman customs and benefit from Rome. In exchange, they pledged loyalty and helped enforce imperial authority. Rome knew that control meant comfort. Give people stability, and they'll obey. Cities were safe, clean, and filled with entertainment. Rome's gifts to its subjects. These urban centers became the empire's communication hubs and control centers. Water supply systems allowed large populations to thrive, even in deserts. No empire before had such reliability. If a road broke, it was repaired. If a city fell, it was rebuilt. Rome wasn't a landed, was a network of systems designed to endure. Infrastructure was more than function, it was identity, stamped in stone. It reminded citizens and outsiders alike, Rome is here, and it's forever. In bricks, roads, and water, Rome wrote its name across history. This was control not just of people but of time and space itself. Rome's greatest weapon wasn't the sword, it was the law, written, enforced, and universal. The Roman legal system laid the foundation for justice in much of the modern world. It began with the 12 Tables, Rome's first codified public laws. These laws were carved in stone, displayed publicly, and applied to all citizens. Justice was no longer a matter of class or privilege, it became structured and formal. As the empire expanded, Roman law extended to conquered peoples as well. Local customs were respected, but all roads led back to Roman authority. Governors acted as judges, trials followed, set procedures, and appeals were allowed. Crimes against the empire were punished severely: rebellion, corruption, and treason. But for the average person, Roman law brought safety and predictability. Contracts, property rights, marriage, and inheritance were all governed by strict rules. This consistency allowed trade, peace, and trust to flourish across cultures. The law unified the empire in a way armies alone could not. Roman citizenship became a legal identity, powerful and protected. At first, it was reserved for Italians, but later expanded to worthy foreigners. By granting citizenship, Rome created loyalty, pride, and order in new territories. Even emperors had to obey the law, at least in theory. The idea that power should be limited by rules came from Rome. When you entered a Roman court, you entered the empire's true core. The law was not just for punishment, it was for control and cohesion. Latin legal terms like habeas corpus and subpoena survive to this day. Rome knew that empires fall without justice, and chaos follows lawlessness. So they built a system that outlasted their own Through law, Rome spoke across time and the world listened. To control the world, they first controlled what was right and wrong. Conquest was only the beginning. Rome knew that true power was cultural. They didn't just conquer cities, they conquered hearts, minds, and customs. Rome encouraged assimilation. Conquered people could become Roman over time. This policy created a shared identity far stronger than fear alone. Language played a key role. Latin became the empire's universal tongue. In courts, markets, and military camps, Latin unified a diverse empire. Art, architecture, and clothing all reflected Roman influence across regions. Romans adopted foreign gods and myths, blending them with their own. They didn't erase, they absorbed, adapted, and renamed. From Egypt's Isis to Greece's Zeus, gods were Romanized and worshipped. Cultural festivals were used to bring people together under Rome's banner. Theaters and games were held in every major city. Rome knew the power of entertainment. Stories of Roman heroes and emperors were spread through plays, statues, and coins. Education followed a Roman model: philosophy, logic, and rhetoric for the elite. Over time, even far-off provinces began to think and feel Roman. Pride in Roman identity replaced tribal divisions in many regions. To be Roman was to be civilized, powerful, and part of something eternal. Even Roman dress, the toga and tunic, became symbols of status and honor. Cultural conformity made rebellion harder. Who rebels against what they are? Rome controlled the narrative of greatness, order, and destiny. This wasn't just empire, it was transformation by design. They created loyalty through pride, not just fear. People in Gaul, Iberia, and Syria began to speak of our Rome. The empire became more than a place, it became an idea. Rome didn't just rule the world, it taught the world how to be Roman. To control an empire, you must control its wealth, and Rome mastered that art. Roman trade routes spanned continents, linking cities by land and sea. Goods flowed through the empire: grain, wine, olive oil, spices, and silk. Merchants moved safely under Roman protection, paying tolls and taxes to the state. Rome used its vast road network to regulate and facilitate economic exchange. Ports and harbors bustled with goods from Asia, Africa, and Northern Europe. Standardized currency made commerce smooth across different regions and cultures. Denarii and sestertii carried the emperor's face and Rome's message of unity. Taxes were collected in cash or goods, funding the army, roads, and officials. Local leaders helped collect taxes in return for Roman favor and protection. The empire's economy was built on agriculture, especially grain from Egypt. Rome's grain supply fed millions and prevented famine and unrest. Slaves worked on massive estates, mines, and farms, fueling productivity. The economy was complex but controlled. Every market felt Rome's presence. A census every 5 years ensured accurate taxation and population control. Tax dodging was punished, but generosity was rewarded with citizenship. The economy wasn't just about profit, it was about power and control. Trade policies favored Roman merchants and discouraged external rivals. Rome taxed luxuries, encouraged production, and monopolized key goods. Gold and silver flowed into Rome, enriching the capital and funding conquests. Wealth was a sign of stability, an empire at peace with itself. Even in poor provinces, Rome invested in roads, aqueducts, and defenses. This created loyalty among the people and dependency on the system. Rome showed the world how to build a global economy and profit from it. Economics wasn't separate from control, it was its engine. Rome didn't just conquer with swords, it ruled through stories, symbols, and spectacle. From statues to coins, everything was designed to glorify the empire and its leaders. Every coin bore the face of the emperor, reminding people who held power. Public buildings were named after emperors to ensure their legacy lived forever. Triumphal arches and columns told stories of victory to those who passed by. Slogans like Pax Romana or Senatus Populus Romanus echoed Roman ideals. Even conquered cities displayed statues of Caesar or Augustus in their forums. This was not decoration, it was political messaging set in marble. Rome used architecture and art to shape public opinion and instill loyalty. Festivals and parades honored military victories and imperial birthdays. Bread and circuses kept the masses entertained and distracted. The Colosseum wasn't just for blood, it was for control through awe and fear. Gladiator games and animal hunts were Roman power dramatized in flesh. The emperor sat above the crowd, like a god among mortals. This spectacle reminded people, Rome gives life and takes it away. Writers like Livy, Virgil, and Tacitus shaped Rome's image in history. They told tales of Rome's divine destiny and noble ancestors. Even lies became truths if Rome said them loudly and often enough. Schools taught Roman heroes and ideals, creating generations of loyal citizens. Symbols like the eagle, laurel crown, and fasces represented strength and unity. Roman propaganda didn't just glorify, it justified every war, tax, and policy. It made people believe that Rome was not just powerful but right. In times of crisis, myths were revised to rally the people. Control of thought ensured control of rebellion before it even began. Rome ruled not just through fear but through imagination. Religion was Rome's invisible chain binding gods, emperors, and people into one system. Romans worshipped a vast pantheon of gods, borrowed, renamed, and Jupiter ruled the sky, Mars the war, and Venus the love that bound society. Religious rituals were deeply tied to the state. No action happened without omens. Temples were built everywhere, signs that the gods approved of Roman control. The emperor himself was eventually worshipped as divine, especially in Eastern provinces. This turned loyalty into sacred duty. Obedience became a form of worship. Public sacrifices, festivals, and holidays united people across class and region. Priests were often politicians, and politics was infused with religious meaning. Even military campaigns began with rituals, prayers, and divine approval. To disobey Rome was not just treason, it was heresy against the gods. Foreign gods were accepted as long as they bowed to Roman supremacy. But if a religion refused to compromise, it was seen as dangerous. Jews and early Christians were persecuted for rejecting imperial divinity. Eventually, Rome adapted again. Christianity was legalized and then embraced. The Emperor Constantine saw its power and used it to unify the empire. Religion remained central, but now with a cross instead of an eagle. Temples became churches, and Roman law blended with Christian doctrine. This gave Rome spiritual power over both body and soul. Even after the empire fell, the Roman Church carried its authority onward. The Pope became a new Caesar ruling minds from the ruins of the empire. Rome's gods changed, but its method remained, controlled through divine legitimacy. Faith was not just belief, it was law, order, and empire. By owning heaven, Rome strengthened its grip on earth, and thus the gods of Rome never truly died. They simply changed their names. No empire rules without resistance, and Rome faced countless uprisings across its lands. From the Jewish revolts in Judea to the Boudiccan rebellion in Britain, the fires burned. Spartacus led a slave revolt so massive it shook the heart of the Republic. Yet each time, Rome responded with overwhelming force and ruthless efficiency. They burned cities, crucified rebels, and erased cultures that refused to bend. But not all resistance was crushed with swords. Some fought with ideas. Christianity, at first illegal, quietly grew in defiance of Roman tradition. Writers criticized emperors, mocked hypocrisy, and challenged Roman pride. Rome controlled the body, but often failed to control the soul. Provinces like Gaul and Egypt staged silent revolts through culture and identity. As Rome expanded, it stretched its control to thin. New enemies saw weakness. The Parthians, Germans, and Goths pushed Rome's borders and broke through. Internal power struggles, civil wars, and assassinations weakened the core. Emperors rose and fell with terrifying speed, some lasting only months. Meanwhile, provinces grew tired of taxes, forced labor, and Roman arrogance. Even loyal allies began to doubt the promise of the empire. By the 3rd century, rebellions weren't just external, they came from within. The Roman dream began to crack under its own weight. Control had worked for centuries, but the system couldn't hold forever. As power slipped, fear returned, and fear leads to rebellion. In the end, it wasn't a single revolt that ended Rome, it was 1,000 cuts. Rome taught the world how to control, but forgot how to listen. The empire could crush enemies, but not history's tide. Resistance, once scattered, became the final storm, and Rome, the eternal, began to fall. The Western Roman Empire fell in 476 AD, but its control never truly ended. Even as cities crumbled and roads decayed, Rome's systems lived on. Its laws shaped Europe. Its language birthed Spanish, French, and Italian. The Roman Church carried its authority deep into the Middle Ages. Feudal kings modeled themselves after Roman emperors in dress and rule. Modern governments still echo the Senate, the Republic, and Roman citizenship. The United States, France, and others borrowed Roman ideals of law and justice. Latin words still govern science, medicine, and religion today. Rome controlled the world and still does, through memory and influence. Its architecture inspired governments, parliaments, and courthouses. Its military discipline shaped modern warfare and tactics. Its road building inspired global infrastructure and city planning. Rome showed how to build not just an empire but a civilization. It taught power through systems, not just strength. Through propaganda, religion, and law, it shaped human history forever. Rome may have fallen by sword, but it rose again through books and ideas. The Eastern Roman Empire of the Byzantines kept the flame alive for 1,000 more years. And today, when we speak of civilization, we often mean Rome. Its greatness was not in marble or monuments, but in methods of control. From the legions to the laws, Rome ruled more than land, it ruled minds. The secret wasn't force, it was unity through function. That's why Rome still matters. That's why Rome never truly died. To understand how the world was shaped, we must first understand Rome, not just what it conquered, but how it controlled. And in that, Rome was the master of them all.